Season 3, the home stretch, and probably the one that's going to get a lot of people on my bad side, because no matter what I say about anything, someone's going to disagree, drastically. I suppose I should say that for the most part, these are my own opinions, and I'm neither going to call this season the worst thing ever or praise it to high heavens. I'm going to do this the way I have been doing it. This episode starts with a pony telling Celestia that it has returned. Wait, it? You don't mean King Ramses, do you? The killer clowns from outer space? Crash Bandicoot? Well, if I don't know what it is, then how would Celestia know? She's been living for at least 1,000 years longer than me. Also, this foreshadowing here is pointless. He could have said that the Crystal Empire returned instead, and that would actually get rid of this flaw. Celestia rallies Cadence in shining armor, and then she writes a letter to Twilight telling her to come to Canterlot at once. That sends Twilight into frenzy mode because, well, she's Twilight. Actually, it's because Celestia wants to give Twilight some kind of test. And the scene where we learn this is funny enough to earn a point. Celestia and Luna are talking. They don't say it's about the Crystal Empire, but it's so obviously about the Crystal Empire since that's the title of the episode. Luna wants to go there, but Celestia doesn't want her to. And they're both being very cryptic, I guess to keep the plot of the Season 3 finale a secret. Twilight arrives, thinking that she's going to be taking some kind of academic test. Actually, it's a different kind of test. Celestia tells Twilight that the Crystal Empire has returned. A unicorn named King Sombra enslaved this empire. You guessed it, 1,000 years ago.
Why 1,000?
It is really 962 years, but 1,000 sounds more ominous.
You know, one of these season openers, I want to see the main six travel back to then, and find out what the hell was going on. Celestia and Luna overthrew Sombra and banished him beneath the Arctic ice.
To shadow.
Objection! If you personally stopped Lord Sombra, then how is your knowledge of the Crystal Empire limited?
Celestia said that she defended it. She never said that she was there for long or learned anything about it. And she couldn't learn about it after she defended it because Sombra put a curse on the Crystal Empire that caused it to vanish for 1,000 years. What Celestia does know is that if the Empire is filled with hope and love, those things are reflected across all of Equestria. However, if hatred and fear take over, she doesn't say anything. So, it has to be bad. And then we learn about Twilight's test, protecting the Crystal Empire. When this first aired, there were a lot of questions. Like, if protecting the Empire was so important, then why didn't Celestia defend it herself? But now that we know a lot more, this episode seems to make a lot more sense. So yeah, I'm fine with all the questions that this raises. Even before Magical Mystery Cure though, you could say that Celestia was making shit up just to mess with Twilight. Celestia tells Twilight that it must be her and her alone in order to protect the Empire. And then she slams the door in her face. That's royalty for you. Then we get this season's first song. It's not the worst song in the show. I mean, it definitely is of the season, but it's nice enough. It just has all of my pet peeves. They stop midstream for dialogue. You could cut it out and this episode would be the same. And then Spike echoes Twilight's lines, which gets really old really fast. However, the song doesn't take up too much time, so I didn't mind it that much. Twilight's friends come by and wonder if she passed her test. She responds by telling them that they're going to the Crystal Empire. Why does that sound like a euphemism for getting high off of meth?
We're going to the Crystal Empire. Huh? What was that? Chip.
Wow, equestrians can build railroad tracks really quickly, since the train leads to an empire that hasn't appeared for 1,000 years. Actually, there are some houses in the background, so I'll assume that this is just some podunk northern village that just happens to be near the Crystal Empire. At the station, they bump into Shining Armor, and he tells them that they might want to get moving. What the hell is with all the cryptic bullshit? We know who he's talking about, King Sombra. Is Sombra like Beetlejuice? If you say his name 3 times, is he going to become a god or something? To this episode's defense, Shining Armor immediately explains what he was talking about right after. Then they get attacked by a cloud of smoke with green eyes that is literally making ghost noises. Even though the villain doesn't appear threatening, you can at least see that the main characters know that it's dangerous. When Shining Armor tries to attack it, we learn that it can't be hit head-on. And it puts rocks on Shining Armor's horn, preventing him from doing magic. That kinda reminds me, never mind. Then we get to see the Crystal Empire, and Rarity has a freak out when Rainbow suggests that it's just an ordinary castle.
Very funny.
You know what? That is very funny. Twilight goes inside the Eiffel Tower and finds Cadence. They instantly start doing their secret handshake, so we know that she's not a changeling this time. Then we learn that she's using her magic powers to keep the Crystal Empire safe. Megan McCarthy, I think you got that backwards. Cadence's special powers revolved around love, and Shining Armor's specialty was shield spells. It seems like a small deal, but it's Megan's own continuity.
Cadence has been able to use her magic to spread love and light.
That kind of looked like a shield to me. Alright, fine, I'll give you this one, but I am watching you. Either way, Cadence is incredibly tired, and Sombra is just out there waiting for the shield to fade. Shining Armor tells Twilight that he's too busy looking around in the Arctic for signs of trouble that he hasn't been able to gather information from the Crystal Ponies, and Twilight figures that that's her test. Pinkie gets a good moment to shine, and then Twilight goes around asking the Crystal Ponies if there's some way to ward off King Sombra. Unfortunately, none of them seem to remember the before times, and none of them want to. None of the others are able to gain information either, and the crystal ponies are really starting to bum me out. Oh my god, run! What was the point of that? To show me that Fluttershy is even more unstable? And no, I'm not deducting a point for that because I'd have to give it right back. Pinkie starts going around the city as a spy, and yes, it's just as funny as it sounds, especially when she gets caught. But the only information they've collectively been able to get was about a library. Twilight has the expected reaction. The librarian turns out to be totally useless, so the main six have to search the whole library by themselves.
Let me know if you find anything.
I like her.
Alright, that's a good one.
Anyone else starting to think this is a lost cause?
Spider, maybe? Perhaps that's something I should bring up. A lot of critics seem intent on calling this episode worthless, and so far I don't see it. Sure, it's clunky and the logic doesn't always make sense, but that's no different from every other episode.
Applejack, what do I do? Let go. Are you crazy? No, I ain't. I promise you'll be safe. That's not true.
What do you know? Haven't you heard of suspension of disbelief?
No, I hate it when people call Season 3 trash while pretending everything before Season 3 besides Meridwell was perfect. Twilight finds a history book that tells them of a crystal fair that is supposed to breathe new life into the crystal ponies. That leads us to the next musical number of the episode, and definitely the better of the two. It's nice, upbeat, and catchy, and it has a reason to be here, to make the exposition dump pleasant and fun. I'll admit the lyrics are somewhat forced.
They had a petting zoo with tiny ewes.
Yeah, no one ever uses that word unless they couldn't think of a good rhyme. Just saying. Applejack sees a stone totem. Twilight explains that the book mentioned a crystal heart, so she cut one out of a stone block. Pinkie blows through her flugelhorn, which is actually a real instrument, and Twilight announces to the crystal ponies that the crystal fair is opening, and the crystal ponies immediately begin to cheer up, and then they start to remember things, like the crystal heart being an actual artifact that Sombra had hidden. Rainbow and Applejack hide the fake heart and explain the problem to Twilight. She reads through the book to find out that the last page was missing, and I just realized that I'm watching Atlantis: The Lost Empire. An ancient empire that hasn't been seen in 1,000 years, has forgotten knowledge, with a superpower source, and a villain that didn't really do much of anything, except die, maybe. That's not a bad thing, considering the previous episodes have taken plots from a variety of different media. But it's good to know because this episode has similar problems, namely the villain. After Cadence collapses, Sombra moves very slowly, but Cadence wakes up and re-ups the shield for no other reason than to end part 1 on a cliffhanger. It cuts off Sombra's horn though, but that evaporates to make the moment entirely pointless. Twilight decides that her test is to find the crystal heart, and so she instructs the rest of the main six to occupy the crystal ponies and keep them from finding out about the fake heart. Is it just me, or does Twilight seem to be feeling a different emotion than what she should in the scene? In fact, she almost seems to be talking to herself. Seriously, it sounds like Tara Strong recorded it in her sleep.
The purpose of the crystal fair is to lift the spirits of the crystal ponies. Take over the empire again? Their spirits are going to be anything but lifted.
Then we've got my main issue with this half. While Twilight goes to find the crystal heart in Sombra's darkness, we keep cutting back to the rest of the main six entertaining the crystal ponies through various shenanigans. The tone is incredibly inconsistent, and it takes you out of the mood. The characters do get some good moments, but it has the feeling of being totally pointless, and it's definitely the less interesting of the two stories. Spike joins Twilight on her journey, despite her instructions to go on her own. The place she decides to go looking is in the Crystal Eiffel Tower, and yes, I'm going to keep calling it that because that's what it looks like. Twilight enters the throne room and casts the dark magic spell she saw Celestia cast only once. Twilight is incredibly powerful, and it does look like she's struggling, not to mention that that's really cool, so I will let it slide. Then we get the most infamous part of this episode, King Sombra's door that shows whoever looks into it their worst fear. I'll give 2 points to Twilight because we actually see her fear, and all the emotions it has, and 1 point for Spike's. The moment is that incredibly awesome, and it's definitely the highlight of this two-parter. I mean, that's how you do an emotionally compelling scene. Twilight casts a different magic on the door and ends up in a room with more stairs. After she gets tired out, she takes a tip from Commander Viridian and turns gravity upside down. I don't know how the hell that works, but it is awesome. Twilight gets to the top of the tower and sees the crystal heart. She approaches it, and a trap imprisons Twilight in a circle of darkness. The crystal heart rolls towards Spike, and even Twilight's magic won't let her escape from the prison. Also, Cadence's magic is fading, and so Sombra is beginning to spread his crystals, his evil. Actually, what his power reminds me of is that ice from the Pokemon movie. You know, the one with the unknowns? You know the one. Twilight realizes that there might not be enough time for her to escape, and so she tells Spike that he has to be the one to return the crystal heart, regardless of what happens to her. Spike takes the heart and jumps out of the tower. Cadence finally collapses, and her love and light go away.
He's back. I can't take it.
Now for what Sombra hasn't done, what it's implied that he's done is downright horrifying. That's why I haven't been deducting any points for his presence, or lack thereof. Spike falls off the tower, and Sombra starts stretching upwards towards him. He licks his lips for some reason, and Shining Armor tosses Cadence. She grabs the heart, and Spike swoops into the air. See, there was a purpose to her being an alicorn. And then it's revealed that Cadence is actually the Crystal Princess. Then the Crystal Ponies use their inherent magic to turn the main six into temporary Crystal Ponies and kill Sombra. Oh yeah, they killed him. The main six return to Celestia, and Twilight actually did pass the test by understanding the meaning of self-sacrifice, which is a really mature moral. And we end up with a reprise of the first song. Can someone please help me out? Why do so many people call this episode bad, or even underwhelming? It's actually a whole lot better than I remember. It seems to line up to a similar quality to the other two-parters. In fact, in some regards, it does better. It's not horribly rushed like Friendship is Magic, where I have honestly no idea what was going on. There's no anticlimax like the return of Harmony, and it doesn't introduce characters out of nowhere like a Canterlot wedding. Sombra may have been a bit of a non-presence, but so was Nightmare Moon. And at least Nightmare Moon had her chance at bat. Sombra was staved off until the end, so there was nothing he could do. Could this have been done better? Of course. The answer to that is always yes. This story does seem better suited to a stop this villain from coming back to life plot, rather than keep this villain away kind of plot. The songs are definitely less than impressive, but what can you do? And songs really shouldn't dictate your tolerance towards an episode. Not every song is going to be This Day Aria or the Smile Song. I do like Ballad of the Crystal Empire at least more than Giggle at the Ghosties. What I'm trying to say, this is not the weakest of the two-parters. Friendship is Magic is, and hopefully that will always be the case. That means that the show is still above its roots, even if it's on its own now.